Hello, I'm Lisa.
I'm Cryss.
And
So about our name. We're just going to tweak it a little. It's just a tiny little tweak from 2 of Skeins to 3 of Skeins because, we're counting them off too.
yeah.
So, but this is the last one. Y'all been with us this long. Y'all know that the name has been a thing. But I think we have one now, and we're just going to go with it. So I don't think we're going to change it again. I really don't think so, but one never knows. But welcome to the 3 of Skeins podcast.
There you go. Alrighty then. That was painful.
I don't know why we can't stick with the name.
But I think that one feels right.
Okay.
It feels right. It feels good. And none of the other ones felt right or good.
She's been feeling all the names and they've been unsatisfactory. Like fruit at the grocery store.
Like, yeah. That's exactly how it is. Sometimes you just give that pear a side eye. You don't even know why, really.
Or the apples.
That's not the right pear.
Or the apples.
Apples are super shifty. Anyway, before we get going, I do have a couple of announcements to make. I am going to be teaching 2 classes at Vogue Knitting. So if you're thinking about taking Vogue Knitting classes, go to the website and look because the classes fill up pretty fast.
It's in February next year. Usually it was like around MLK. So they've shifted it a little bit.
Yeah, I think they want to try to get slightly better weather because the last few times in January it was brutal.
January can be rough.
Yeah, so. But I will be teaching how to work a pattern, and it's all about, just like it says, how to work with patterns and have everything flow, and how to evaluate whether or not that pattern is worth your time. And I will also be doing a class called Bind Off Loosely Like a Pro. And there are literally, 100 other classes that are there. Do check it out. Enjoy it. Yes, I know, Cryss. There are fewer crochet classes. I'm sorry, crocheters. I don't have any control over that.
I didn't say anything.
I saw your face. I was like, oh.
I didn't say anything.
Oh. And speaking of classes, I will be launching my project classes soon. There's more to come. I'm actually setting them up, but I'll be talking about them. So anyway, that's announcements. You have any announcements? Okie dokie. So, you know what? I usually ask, but I think I'm going to go first.
Okay.
All right. So I tweaked my Nymphula top ever so slightly. I've been wanting to kind of sign my work. So what I did was I made myself the cutest little label. Oh, that's not showing up nicely. Ah, there we go. I just bought a coordinating ribbon. And I embroidered my initials and the year onto it in a very light thread that's barely showing up on camera.
But not invisible.
There it is. But it's not invisible. I don't embroider an invisible thread. That won't serve you. Now, my embroidery is going to improve because you know what? I noticed improvement from the first thing I embroidered to the last number. But this way, all of my makes will have my initials and the year on them. I'm so happy with that. So it's something to consider, putting in your own label. I've worn other people's labels all my life, so I felt like I need to wear my own label. And I went with a satin ribbon because I thought it would feel smooth on the back of my neck. And I like anything that's shiny. And
it's true, but we didn't have to tell people.
Oh, I think they're going to know. And she is fully beaded. Oh, watch her twinkle. But anyway, that is Nymphula.
Now it's finished?
It's finished. Yep.
I'm still in me now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I'm still working on my super shrug, but it's going. I finished my squares. Last week I hadn't finished them, did I? No, because I
No.
finished them over the weekend. So I finished all my squares. I had to do 36 6x6 inch squares. And then I decided to take a couple of days just to figure out what I want to do next and rest my arm. And then I ended up taking a couple more days that were just procrastination days because I felt like I didn't know how to assemble it. And I realized I wasn't going to be able to like think my way out of that. I was just going to have to pick up the squares and start trying to put them together different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that, and now it's coming together. So I have my handy dandy giant tote bag over here. And whoo, child, all the strings. These will not all be woven in. I will be doing some knots and just cutting them short.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where we are right now. Oh
wow.
look at that looks good. I
Oh
love
wow.
these squares.
See, I did not know you were doing these wide lines.
Yeah.
Oh wow. You changed the plan completely.
I like that.
Yeah.
So this is officially the halfway mark because I have 3 rows of squares attached and I have 3 more rows to do. So I'm just doing slip stitch seams between the squares, and then I just work off the bottom edge to do these horizontal rows and then join it with a slip stitch to the next row. So I always sew my squares together first and then attach it all together. But you see what I mean about the big squares taking care of that really low contrast?
Yeah.
Because you can see all the colors, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have the issue with the contrast I was having.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that worked out. I think this is going to be really cute.
It's so pretty.
Very light compared to the original version, which was,
a little weighty.
Stop laughing. It was, worsted weight craft store cotton on a cone. Yeah. This is going to be so much more comfortable to wear.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy with how it's coming out. I think she looks pretty.
And I really love you know what? I love how those soft colors are playing together. They're sort of one flowing into the next, and I think that's really lovely. Yeah. So what inspired the wide band in between?
I needed it. So 6x6, right? 6x6 squares. I wanted it to be a little bit longer than it was wide. Mm-hmm. So I put these rows in to add length.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. So each row is just is like 1.25 inches. So it'll be a little bit longer because I wanted it to reach like 40 inches. Mm-hmm. So that's where the horizontal rows came from. But I'm also going to do all of my edging. So the collar and the bottoms of the sleeves are going to be this dark gray. And I thought it would make a lot more sense if I had a little dark gray detail also mixed in with the body.
Yeah. Because this wasn't even a consideration when we were talking about it. Wow.
Yeah, so I really like how it came out.
Yeah.
Now, I had a plan to put it together in such a way that, I did visible seams. And I just ended up liking this side better, which means I could have just gone ahead and did the intarsia I was thinking about doing in the first place. However, I just learned intarsia this year, and I've never worked with more than 3 balls at a time. And this would have required 6 balls. And as it grew, I was going to have 6 balls attached to the bottom at any given moment. And I didn't like that plan. So I'm glad I worked it this way with the individual squares.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm ever going to do, big intarsia. I think I like little intarsia where you just don't change colors that often. But yeah, it's coming along, and I'm actually very happy.
I love how you have texture and color all playing together.
Yeah, I did seed stitch.
So nice.
Seed stitch is like super easy, like cheap way to do texture because it's so completely simple. You just alternate single and double crochets, and you always single in your doubles and double in your singles. But it gives you gorgeous texture, and I wanted that. I didn't want it, like the flatness you get from just doing like single crochets or double crochets. I really wanted this to have a little bit of texture to it, just to give it a cozier look and feel. And yeah, that was a thing to do. Very happy with it. So she's coming along. She doesn't have a name yet. They never have names until the end, but I'm very happy.
Oh, you should be. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
I got more squares to stitch together, but like I said, I'm at the halfway point. I do not hate this process as much as I thought I would. And I think the precautions I took, making larger squares so that I would have fewer squares. And then the way I ended up stitching it together, I'm only stitching 6 squares together at a time. And then, doing those horizontal rows. I'm even breaking that process up. So I'm only stitching, the vertical and not having to stitch anything horizontal. Yeah. So it's just less. It's just a lot less. And I feel like I could do this again if I planned carefully again and, didn't give myself tiny little itty bitty motifs. I feel like this would be fine.
Because you always said no motifs.
Yeah. I see people when they're working on those blankets and they're lovely. They look great when the blanket is done. But when they're whips and you just see all these little
the piles of squares.
Yes, and then all the ends. No.
Show them your square keeper.
Oh,
I just noticed that today.
Let me tell you what happened. So I was figuring out the order I wanted the colors to be in, and I had it all laid out on the floor. And when I had it in that order, I was like, well, I'm not going to remember this. So each row of 6, I put on a little ring.
Yep.
So that I would always have the 6 squares that I needed, in order. So I had little square keepers.
Mm-hmm. Just corral them and keep them in order.
Yes. And that worked out very, very well.
Wow. You've gotten really far on that.
Huh. I know. I feel good. I'm thinking right now it's just the inkling of an idea. I'm thinking about making a little outfit to match it. So I have my jacket and something, I need to go with it. Oh. I don't know yet. I don't know. Like I said, it's just a thought. But we might make a whole little fall ensemble. I don't know.
Oh. I'm excited already.
Oh, goodness.
I'm super excited, though. Is that it for you right now?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, as you guys know, my niece asked for a vest, so I'm an auntie. I'm working on a vest. I got the back completely finished.
It's so teeny.
I know, it's teensy. It's teensy. So, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but I like to put in little guidelines. Well, they're lifelines. Technically speaking, these are lifelines. They are individual threads of a contrast color that I have woven in through one particular row. And I use them as markers because I'm making the pieces separately. And I'm trying to do everything I can to make sure they're all pretty much the same height.
Mm-hmm.
So I know exactly how many rows there are from the ribbing to this marker, which is where the armhole shaping ends. Well, kind of begins. And then how many rows there are between this marker and this one. And then here's my neck shaping up here and shoulder shaping. So that should, in theory, enable me to make everything the same height because I'm making the back and then 2 fronts. Grab my fronts. So I have 2 balls of yarn for the fronts because I'm doing the fronts 2 at a time. So there's 1 ball for this front and 1 ball for this front.
I don't know. I didn't say anything.
You don't have to. You don't have to use
I didn't say a word.
But just like you said, how you needed to plan so that it would come together the way you wanted. One of my long-standing issues, because I don't always pay the strictest attention, is that things come out slightly different heights. It's ever so slight. So to prevent that happening, I am doing my fronts two at a time. So my fronts will be precisely the same. And then I'll just have to make it the same as the back. But here they are. Here's my two little fronts. I am so tickled by the tininess of this sweater. You guys just have no idea. And I'm using Barocco Ultra Wool Fine, which I have doubled to make it a nice little worsted yarn. And they have navy blue and worsted, but I had navy blue and fine. So I had me a make it work moment. And I'm using 5mm needles. I guess those are US 8s. But if you want to make things match, do everything you can. So I also drew a nice little diagram of the sweater, a little schematic, so to speak. Oh, I should put them up in there. And on my schematic, I noted exactly how many rows. So I have a signpost and a number of rows to aim for. So I have the number of rows from the ribbing to the first marker and the number of rows from the first marker to the second. So in theory, everything should come out the same height.
In theory. I think you will. If you do it two at a time. It should be fine.
It should be fine.
At the very least, the two fronts will be the same height as each other.
They certainly will. And they'll probably be within a row or two of the back, and I can finesse that when I put it together.
As you see, she's very precise when she works, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The only thing I'm going to do is I am going to block this before I put the pieces together, just so that I have nice flat pieces to work with. And the one change I would make, and I should have thought, I didn't think about it when I started, but next time I do something like this that's done in pieces, I'm going to include selvage stitches, because I'm getting about 4 stitches to the inch. Mm-hmm. And when I sew this together, I'm going to lose 1 stitch on each end. So I'm going to lose 4 stitches.
Pick up stitches and do an edging? Like basically do a selvage kind of afterwards? An afterthought selvage?
I guess I could, but it wouldn't be vertical.
No, but you're going to stitch them. So
oh, that's right. They would disappear.
Yeah.
So I guess I could. But I planned 3 inches of ease. Mm-hmm. So even if I lose 1 inch, it's still going to be a standard fit sweater.
Okay.
You know, so, but like I said, going forward, I'm always going to think about adding selvage stitches, even if it's just 1 on each edge. Mm-hmm. That will disappear into it, because especially on a little sweater like this, 1 inch
is a lot.
It makes a difference. Yeah. So that's something to think about as you make sweaters that are in pieces. I usually do things that are like 1 piece, so I never really think about it in terms of losing things from sewing together. And that's pretty much where that is. This is a very simple vest. I am using instructions out of the Knitter's Handy Book of Patterns. Very easy to follow. I suggest you get one because it's a really good book. It really is a really, really neat book. It'll have all the basic things you might want to make, and you can work for years. I know I could. I could work for years out of it. But that's that for me and my projects. What's going on with you?
Nothing much. I have been lurking on a new app. I've been like hardcore lurking on this thing called the Making app. And it's basically kind of like an Instagram type thing. I mean, you post pictures.
It's called Making or Maker?
Making. And I like it because, you know, Instagram is everything and everyone. This is really just focused on, you know, people who make things. And it's just kind of like a smaller group. And it just gets less noisy so far. I mean, they're new. Who knows? But I like it so far. Only thing I will say is this. people, I guess, Instagram and social media have been around for so long that everybody is taking like near professional quality photos. I don't take them kind of pictures. So I haven't put any pictures up there yet because I'm a little intimidated.
Oh.
Because everything always seems like so artfully arranged. You never see like anything that's ever so slightly blurry, or the lighting is just not that great. No, everything's like freaking perfect, and I'm just like, stop it, people. But I do feel a little pressure, but I might post something there eventually. I don't know, but they offer, like, there's a way to offer, I think, classes on the app. What I don't know is if those classes are actually being offered by the making app itself, or if just anyone who's on there can offer classes, or if you get approved to offer classes or something like that. But I do like that because the classes are going to be specific to something that's more likely to be my interest. Actually, I'm trying to think. I don't think I've seen any crochet classes yet. So far, I've seen mostly knitting classes, but very reasonable prices.
Oh.
And I like that feature that the classes are just like pop up right in the app, as opposed to like, you might only see it if you're following a certain person or something like that. So.
Oh, and Stitches at Home is coming up.
Yeah, I did Stitches at Home once. I did class with Dora Ornstein, and I liked it. I really did. But I just feel like, well, I don't feel like crocheters are an afterthought. So their little like gift basket they sent out to people was very like knit century, had a knitting book in it. And I feel like they could have done, one book for knitters, one book for crocheters, but whatever.
But overall, I thought the quality of classes was very good because I took a class from Stitches at Home too. My only complaint was that they were very long classes.
Yeah, because it was a multi-day thing.
Yeah.
And you need breaks, but like...
Because each session was 3 hours.
Yeah, I don't remember how long mine was, but I remember it was over multiple days.
My session, each session was 3 hours, and we had 2 sessions of 3 hours, and then we came back a third weekend. And I think that one was like 2 hours. It was a lot of class.
I do think if you're streaming a class, it does need to be a little bit shorter.
Because I find I can do a 2-hour class, but 3 hours leaves me exhausted. And I don't know why that is. And that's as the teacher or the student. So if you guys have done online crafting classes, let us know what you think. Was the length good for you? Were you able to see everything? Do you feel like you got a lot out of it? Because I did feel like I got a lot out of the class I took. Mine was about sweater design.
Well, yeah, I made a top. I took a class in top down in the round crochet tops, and I made a top from that class. And Dora Ornstein, she's a great teacher. So I feel like I learned a lot about that technique, and I'll probably be trying it again. Because I hadn't made any sweaters that way before. I'd only done pieced sweaters, so it was good information. Yeah, definitely. But it was long.
I didn't even look to see how long the classes are this time. I don't know, so do check them out because it was long.
I don't know. I'm trying to decide how I feel about live online classes versus recorded classes. With recorded classes, you can pause when you want to and come back to the information, but you don't have the live interaction with the teacher. It's a trade-off. But I don't know. I think I like the recorded classes just because sitting there for 3 hours is painful. It's not the same as sitting for 3 hours in person.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's a little more tiring, I think.
It is. It absolutely is because I have been wiped out by it. But my ideal is to have the live class and maintain access to it after the fact, so that if I do need to go, I think she said something, or I can just go back and take a look at it. And I like when the online classes are in chapters like they do on YouTube. So I can just go right back to the area that I need to look at rather than having to scroll through the whole thing. Um, that for me, that combination is really, really good.
Vogue Knitting won't be offering any online classes for the next show.
The next show is in November, and that one is an online show.
The one you're teaching at in February.
I don't think so. That's going to be all 100% live in person.
Yeah, I'm not ready for that.
I know we went to the grocery store today, and we thought we were getting out early, so we left. We got there, it was maybe like what, 9:15, 9:20, and we thought, oh, we'll have the store all to ourselves. Not.
Like next time we're gonna try 8. Because I didn't really plan to go at 6, and I was like, that's maybe a bit much, but 6 is looking better.
Whatever.
So what else is going on in your crafting life?
Well, I have a sweater planned for my next cast on, but I might bump it because I got incepted by a picture of Queen Latifah.
What does that even mean?
You know
what was she wearing?
This really beautiful knitted. I thought it was more of a poncho, but they called it a cape. Mm-hmm. And I think I want to knock it off. It's kind of gorgeous. And I was like, oh. So I'm resisting the urge to do that.
Okay, I just so you know, before every show, she asks me, oh, do you have any pictures you want to share? And I always feel like deer in headlights, like I'm supposed to have a picture. But I usually don't. But she had a picture, and then she didn't post it. She didn't put it. You have to like put it in the StreamYard beforehand, and then you can just pop it up on the screen. And she didn't do that. So you should ask yourself, do you have any pictures you want to share?
You know what? I don't have it.
Did you save it?
In the moment. It's in my Pinterest.
Oh. Yeah. But I just say stuff like that on my phone. I have a folder called Crochet Inspo, and I just, steal it and put it in my phone. I have a lot of very awkward pictures that I take up my television screen, usually in the wee hours.
It never looks good.
Yeah, but it's just enough to remind me of what it is I want to make or what I like about, the thing that I saw. Yeah.
But I was looking at it and I was like, oh, here it is. I think that's kind of cool. See, take a look. I think that's kind of cool. And I'm looking at it and looking at it. I'm like,
it's kind of you can make this.
It's kind of a Ruana. It's got that high-low action going on. And I am going to maybe prototype it in paper just to make sure I can get the shape right, because this is literally the only picture. Mm-hmm. I got obsessed and I was looking for, pictures from other angles.
What magazine is that from? Because you might be able to look at the magazine and find out who made it and then get pictures from their site.
As far as I can tell, it wasn't in a magazine. It's like the store saw her. I don't know. The only information I could find was this right there. And the other picture I had didn't even have that.
Well, did you look up Acne Studios?
I did. They don't have it anymore. This is not a new picture. I went straight to Acne Studios when I saw it. And I was like, oh.
I've never even heard of Acne Studios.
Me neither. They have a lot of very weird clothes. But that's really cool.
The shade.
You didn't see what I saw. But I really, really love this piece. And I was like, you know what? Girl, you can make that.
Oh, the other day, you mentioned making some tank tops.
Yes.
And what?
I'm considering making some tank tops, perhaps in fingering weight. But I'll probably punk out and go to sports.
But she actually considered it. Y'all don't understand the work I have put in. It's like chiseling away at Mount Rushmore, trying to get her to consider fingering weight yarn. She has so much of it, but she's like, no, only the socks. But I did suggest she use fingering weight because if she wants them to be layering pieces,
I do.
You want to go lighter.
Yeah, I totally get that.
But
I totally get
we
that.
may get a fingering weight garment out of Lisa. And I told her one of the things she could do make something with no sleeves, make something that's a shorter length. There
Yeah.
are ways she could like
Minimize the
less
work.
fabric.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think because you know what, I'm conceptualizing a kind of cozy winter, you know, loungewear situation. And I would like, maybe a long line cardigan with a cute warmish tank top underneath and maybe some leggings. So I'm even considering knitting some leggings. I don't hold me to that.
Yeah.
But
Now, what weight would you do those in?
DK.
Hmm.
Or worst.
I wouldn't want to wear worsted weight leggings.
They'd be warm though.
That sounds hot if you're just gonna wear it around the house.
But you know what? I wanted something that I wouldn't look crazy if I just, we just ran out for a minute.
Mm.
So they won't have like big flowers on them or nothing like that. Maybe just a cute little, I don't know, mouse running up the side. I don't know. But they might just have one little cute thing on it. But that's it. But don't hold me to the leggings. I'm still considering those. But yeah, I'm thinking, but I like that Ruana, so that would be part of my winter making. And if I could get out a long line cardigan and that Ruana, I would be really happy for that.
Okay. Do you think you would consider working one project at a time so that you could focus on finishing?
What? Honestly, that's kind of what I've been doing.
Helpful, isn't it?
Yeah. But you know what? It's not as thrilling,
I don't know. I feel like the multi-makers finish less.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We do finish less. We do finish less.
And I also feel like it's easier to get bored with a particular project.
Oh, yeah. That's part of why I'm a multi-maker. And I have to fight myself not to constantly be casting on new things.
Yeah, I think it's like the thrill of the cast on that makes people
of dopamine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But don't you get a bigger hit from finishing something and wearing it?
It's nice. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. But it's the instant gratification as opposed to delayed gratification. Mm-hmm. Now, the gratification you get at the completion of a project may be wonderful, but it take a minute to get there. It take a minute to get there.
Mm-hmm. I just feel like, especially because like the Cape Ruana whatever situation,
that's a big one.
Yeah. That's so you really want to just like focus on that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like I said, I'm going to think about it, and I'm going to have to. Like I said, I'm going to prototype one in paper just so I can see what the shape is, because that is the only picture. And I have been cyber stalking Queen Latifah ever since to try to see if I can see her from another angle in this thing.
And what? The easiest way to do it might be, 2 rectangles and just make the front one shorter.
That's my first thought. That was my first thought right there. But yeah, that's where we at. But that would look cute with my leggings too.
But you need an Inception folder.
Yes, but I have it on Pinterest. Mm-hmm. It's called Potential Knits. I could potentially knit this, But yeah, so that's what I'm thinking about. But I am not allowing myself to really start it until I get done with Rachel's Fest. And then it's going to be a coin toss as to which project I pick up next. Yeah.
Do you feel like you are also adapting your workflow as you become more focused on actually making a wardrobe? Because that's definitely what I found happening with me. It's like, I need to change the way I work now so that I can, get through my projects and record them appropriately and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's pushing you towards being a mono maker.
I don't know if I'll ever be 100% a mono maker, because I find that even as I am working on something, I'm often thinking into the next project.
You know what? I have to write all of that down or photograph it, and then I just peek at it sometimes.
And I find what helps me too is to do some sketching. Because even when I can't directly work on something, I find that thinking about it in like some physical form scratches the itch ever so slightly. Okay, that's her judging.
No,
That's her judging.
no.
So I have my
Big
swatch
giant
book,
book.
and this was my Nymphula swatch before I had my Nymphula sketch before I had anything going on, and then I was able to swatch it, and it just sort of brought the whole thing to life for me.
I'm sorry, and you said sketch. Is this the watercolor painting?
It's a mixed media. Yes, there's some watercolor
Mm.
involved, but that's how I colored it.
Mm-hmm.
Only because the original Nymphula that I saw in the magazine, it was stripy.
Right.
And I needed to, for me, I need like concrete visualizations. So I needed to see it in my color to see if it would really work. And once I drew it, I was like, yeah, that works a treat. And once I had the swatch, I knew the yarn I chose would show would show all the texture, because it would be a shame to create this textured thing and it's flat. There's like no texture there. So for me, visualizing, conceptualizing can stand in the stead of actually casting on for a while. That will keep me calm long enough so I don't just like, I'm going to cast on 30 things right now.
Oh, okay. Because some people, I watch videos and I see them showing their whips and they bring out like 7 things and it'd be like 3 rows on the needles. And I'm like, how?
Because you got into a cast on fugue. It happens.
Mm-mm.
You know what? I can't even judge them.
That's
I'm
not
like,
for me.
Sometimes I see something, I'm like, I want to make that right now. Right.
I realized when I started multiple things that nothing got finished. So
it does take long. You have to be very disciplined to make time.
Very quickly switch from multi-making to mono-making.
Yeah. You got to make time to work on each thing. And that's the hard part. And I was really being a very emotional knitter.
Maybe you need a planner for each project.
I was a very emotional knitter, so I would just go with whatever I felt like working on at the moment. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I don't have the bandwidth for something complicated, and sometimes I do complicated things.
And you make a lot of adaptations on your knitting.
I do because
so something that might start out simpler, you tend to make a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, because some knits are boring, and I don't do well bored. Or I need to adapt it to my body shape, mm-hmm. so that it fits me better or works for me better in some way. So those things I think are important, and I think if you're gonna take the time to make something, why not make it exactly what you wanted?
Well, yeah. Because I see people online making things that they don't really like because they're popular. I don't understand how that works. I have to say, it's been really nice being away from social media and not feeling that push to buy a certain yarn or make a certain pattern. It's like, I know that my making now is my making. Mm-hmm. And I'm making exactly the things I want to make. I'm using exactly the yarn I want to use, because I think sometimes you don't always realize how much outside influence does impact your decisions, or even just like your desire to do a certain thing. Yeah. And I like working in a much quieter space. You know what? I was never like a great fit for social media, but having tried it and then stepped away from it, I'm like, oh, I like this much better. And it's a conflict, just because sometimes you do want to feel like connected to a community, just because I do want to see what other people are making, and I do want to learn from other people and explore other ideas that I might not have thought of. But you got to find a balance, and I'm hoping, I can't like say for sure now, but I'm hoping that something like making, which is just focused on my interest and doesn't have like all the other things, might work better for me. I don't know.
You know what? Crystal just told me about it just before we got started, so I haven't even gotten a chance to look on making.
I could have sworn I mentioned it before. I think she doesn't remember, but yeah, it's relatively new. I don't know how long it's been around, but I want to say maybe like this year.
Because I was not an early adopter of social media.
Oh, me neither.
I only got into Facebook because remember my creativity group I was in Brooklyn? We moved off of meetup.com and moved on to Facebook because Facebook was free. And that's what made me join Facebook like a few years after it was done. It depends. I enjoy looking at other people's work, but it doesn't really like I rarely feel like I have to make something because other people are making it. Now, what did affect me was the type, the category of things. I started making socks because I think in like 2010, 2011, there was a huge sock craze. It was like everybody was making socks. And I was still making fun of people who made socks at that point. I was like, socks come 6 in a pack. Why? Pray tell. When I take this off the bed.
That's so funny because she is like such a sock maker now.
I like making socks now. But what happened was there was such a sock craze. I was all right, let's see what's in this sock business. So I found this really great article in Nitty that taught me how to make a decent fitting pair of socks. And they were so doggone comfortable. And that's what really got me into making socks. The comfort factor. And I do like having a small canvas to try out new things. Sometimes trying something on a small scale where I would get overwhelmed if I was doing a whole sweater's worth of, whatever insano technique I found.
Insane.
I mean, sometimes, I get curious sometimes and I will try something just because it sounds interesting. And I'm like, there's a reason people stop doing that. And I discovered it. There's a reason nobody does it that way anymore. Like I told you, I had my year of making socks where I decided to try making socks every way that I found out about. The only one I stopped short at, I stopped before I did, a sock within a sock. The Dr. Zhivago method. That's the one I didn't try.
That sounds entirely unnecessary.
It's a hoot though, because when you're done, you just pull one sock out of the other.
But what if you made a mistake on the sock that's inside the other sock? You'd never see it.
You're fooled.
Oh. Okay.
I would make a very plain
sock. That's the mature answer I was hoping for.
I would just make a very plain sock so there'd be very little chance of a mistake. I'd do a stockinette sock and, just keep it real basic because I'm making one sock inside another sock.
I'm not saying how that works, but okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you would do that on DPNs or circular?
Yeah, DPNs.
And so there would be needles sticking out of the inside sock
while you're
working on the outside sock.
Girl, yes.
No.
So
I know from me, dog.
But you know what happened? In trying several different ways, I found a way that I liked, and I was like, okay, I'm good here. And I encourage people to try things, but try it on a small scale. Give yourself every chance to not get, because I can get overwhelmed sometimes. And I'm like, oh, no, I can't do it. When I should have started with a dish towel. Instead of.
I'm trying to make sweaters different ways. And I have yet to do like a raglan, like in pieces, because I do want to do that so I can do like real like raglan sleeves that are a different color from the body of the sweater. I've not gotten up to that yet. My queue, it grows and it shrinks. It's like the queue of requirement. So I put that on the queue, but then it gets pushed back.
And my goal is to try several different sweater constructions
Yeah,
to find the one that fits me best and is the most comfortable for me.
I know people say certain styles of sweater don't fit, like a boat neck or what have you, and I'm just like, I don't know. It's a sweater can get a little weird in the underarm. Sometimes you have that like big thing of fabric. I don't care. That means absolutely nothing to me.
Like, whatever.
If that's the only issue with the sweater, that you have extra fabric at the underarm, I ignore that. That don't bother me. So I want to do all the sweater constructions.
Yeah, and that's what I'm going to work my way through. I'm going to work my way through the different sweater constructions because at some point I kind of settle down and just make sweaters.
And even though I hate seaming things, but I actually really like making piece sweaters because I feel like it just gives me a lot of control over each part of the sweater. And I can make my sleeve what I want it to be. I can make the front different from the back if I want it to be. It's just it's a very simple way to work, I find.
Yeah.
And you're gonna get a little bit less bored because if I made a long cardigan all single crochet, so doing the back separate from the two pieces of the front and then the sleeves, just gave me some breaks to take. So I actually really liked piece sweaters, but I just want to make sure that I know how to make sweaters different ways and that I just give myself options, because as I'm looking at really making a wardrobe, I want to be able to make whatever I want. That's the goal. The end game is to just decide, oh, I want to make this kind of garment, and I'll be able to figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure I have a full tool set in terms of techniques and skills so that I can make anything. That's the plan. That's the maker I'm trying to become. The chick who can crochet anything. Like, wish me luck.
But I'm trying to find the sweater construction or constructions that fit me best and are easiest to make for my dimensions.
What do you like to buy when you buy a sweater?
I am, what? This is a typical sort of sweater I buy.
So you like a set?
I prefer a set-in sleeve. Yeah. And that's the next thing I make. I'm definitely doing set-in sleeves because I find that, at least for me, a raglan style sweater, personally, the raglan sleeve was built for a man with one arm. That's how that became a thing.
Only you know that.
No, a lot of people know it. This guy, Lord Raglan, who was in a war, I forget which one. Might have been the Crimean. I don't remember. I may not be right about that part. But his tailor designed a jacket for him that he could put on by himself. Anyway, it's meant for someone with a flat chest. And that's not me. So I don't know if I really want to spend my time making raglan sweaters.
Like, increase the chest if you need to, or do bust darts or whatever to make the chest fit, or like make the front a little bit bigger than the back so you have a little extra
there's all those kind of games you can play. Or I could just make a sweater that was built on a woman and takes into account that I'm shaped different than a man.
I don't have, you know what, I don't know if I have any raglan sweaters. I like to wear like raglan like t-shirts type style, and I don't know.
But I found when I was knitting my other sweater, my raglan style sweater, I had to play around because a lot of times with the raglan increases, if you make it longer to increase your bust, then you end up with a sleeve that goes down here.
Well, you know what? So like, I've only done this once. Like I said, I took that class with Dora Orenstein, and what I realized is that, so if you're doing like the rectangle, the ratio of these sides to these sides is very important, because you don't want to make the shorter side too long and end up with that really crazy wide armhole opening. So yeah, you do have, if you get that ratio, because mine, I like the way I made a t-shirt and I like the way mine fits, but you have to get that ratio right, and you really want them to be much closer in length than you think.
Yeah.
You want them to be not quite a square, but not a huge difference between the length and the width.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah. But that's why I'm like, since I'm not particularly wedded to raglan sweaters, I don't
Mm-hmm.
particularly care for them. I'm like, all right, so maybe I won't spend my time making raglan sweaters that I'll have to wrestle with because they weren't built for someone like moi. I can make a sweater that's easier to customize in the bust.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I was thinking about the cocoa knit sweaters. She usually includes bust darts in
Mm-hmm.
hers because she's making sweaters for women who have busts.
Yeah, but I don't know. I haven't had a huge problem with my sweaters fitting
You
in
know
the butt.
what? You don't have the kind of bust I have.
Well, this is true.
I have a bigger bust. And I have narrow shoulders and a big bust, and you have
Yeah, I do have
wide
wider
shoulders.
shoulders.
And raglan styles will look great on you because you have wide shoulders. They're built for someone with wide shoulders.
Right. I don't know. I haven't. Since I started sewing, I've been wondering, do I need to do some sort of like bust dart or some sort of special construction for the bust of my sweaters? Because, when you sew, you do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. So far, it just hasn't been an issue.
Yeah.
If anything, I would just, increase a little bit for the front and then if it decreased after the bust.
But most sweaters are designed for someone average size like you.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, not so much. They're upsizing an average size sweater for me. So what a lot of people tend to do is make all dimensions of the sweater bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't fit me.
Right.
So I need to customize for my particular
So you need
dimensions.
to come up with almost like a what do they call it
A
for sewing?
sloper.
Yes, a sloper for your
Yeah.
knit sweater.
That's what I'm working on. I'm working on creating a sloper so that I can just plug my dimensions
So
in.
this book you're using now to make the vest, would that help you with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Um and just understanding better. That's why I want to work with this a little bit too. I think I might make a sweater for me out of it just to see how the proportions, because that's a conversation that's going on in knitting right now. Um, I don't remember the woman's name, but I will put it in the description bar. She's come up with a new sizing chart that is not the standard one. A lot of knit sweaters, and I'm sure a lot of crochet sweaters too, are built off the craft Yarn Craft Council, and I've
Craft
just
Yarn Council.
thank you. I know I said it wrong. The Craft Yarn Council's standard measurements, but those measurements are old.
Mm-hmm.
And she has done a project where she's gathered together modern measurements and created a new size chart. And I find that that size chart reflects me better.
Mm-hmm.
So I would actually use that, my measurements. I don't have to worry about a size chart
Right.
really. I use
That's
my
what I was going to
measurements
ask. Right.
to um, build my own sweaters. But if I were going to write a pattern, I would have to pick a size chart and stick
Mm-hmm.
with it. So I would probably use that more modern
Right.
sizing chart just to give people a chance at a better fit. And most sweaters are built on a C cup.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a C.
Right.
So I need to give myself a little room.
I gotcha. It's a lot.
It is, but I think once you get it settled, it's like once I got my sock situation settled, I can just pump out socks. Now, my first sock wasn't that great. But, as things progressed, I
Were you
make
still
socks that
making
fit.
twisted stitches by the time you tried socks?
Yeah, my first sock was all twisted stitches. Yeah. I got over that eventually.
Yeah, you figured that out.
But yeah, that I think that is a good thing to come to the point where you're like, all right, let me just make these clothes for me.
Right.
Rather than try to conform me to clothes.
Exactly. And so just picking a size from the pattern doesn't always work.
No.
So you have to be prepared to bring your own numbers and to be able to do some small adjustments to make something fit you. Because sometimes I look at the size range for a crochet pattern and I'm just like, there can be a big gap between two sizes,
Mm-hmm.
and usually it's just the bust you have to go by. So it could be one size is like a 34 bust and the other size is like 40. I'm like, really? Nothing in between there?
Yeah, there's plenty in between there.
So I don't know. I just haven't had to worry about fit, obviously, since I've just been designing for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And when all else fails, measure something in your closet.
Yeah.
Something that fits exactly the way you like. That's a great place to start. So that was a wide-ranging discussion.
I think it was. So what are your strategies for making things that actually fit you? I'd love to hear that because, we've all had those things happen. I'm gonna fess up to it.
I made like a jacket that was supposed to be double-breasted, and it wasn't. It was too small, so I just did one row of buttons, and it fit just fine.
And there we go.
That from a pattern, it was just like, oh, it's a little. Oh, and then I made another top that was too big, so it was supposed to like meet in the middle with a button here, but I ended up like kind of wrapping it,
folding it across.
Yes. Sometimes you got to make it work, designer. So.
But anyway, let us know. What do you guys do about fit? And I think that's it for us today. See you guys next week.
Stay stitching.
Toodles. I can't find the thing. Okay, here we go.